everyone. Today we are going to change out those rear leaky axle seals on a 2000 Expedition, and also while we're at it we are going to check those rear bearings also. They are notorious for going bad. What we gotta do is go ahead and get some blocks into the front wheel, and we'll go ahead and get this thing up in the air. I like using my antique jack because it's about 3 feet long and it goes way up under the rear end. A lot of the modern new jacks don't even go that far, so I like to use this guy a lot. So we'll go ahead and get this thing up in the air and get this wheel up about 3 inches or so off the ground. And now we have the back axle safely up in the air with a couple of floor jacks. And we'll go ahead and get this big 17-inch rim and wheel off. Okay, the next thing we've got to do is go ahead and take our calipers off here. Get these bolts out. These are all 10 millimeter, and they're usually pretty easy to take out. And we'll pop this one off up here and take this one out next. Get this out of the way. And now we'll go ahead and pull our brakes off. Sometimes you have to take a screwdriver and come in here and help it out a little bit. And we'll just kind of put that out of the way. And now at this point, we'll just go ahead and simply pull off our rotor. Alright, and there it is. And inspect the inside and make sure your e-brakes are okay. This is a good time to inspect those. Make sure there's no wear, nothing's busted or any of the springs are missing. And now, we're done on this side, so now we got to go under the vehicle and start taking the cover plates off for the rear axle. Alright, now as you can see, we are under the vehicle and we got to take this cover plate off. It is held on by 10 of these 1/2 inch little bolts. Make sure when you're taking these off that you use a 5-point socket, because these are easy to round off, and if they've never been off and they've been on there since the vehicle was built from the factory, these are on there pretty tight. So make sure you use a little 5-point socket to save yourself a lot of grief. So now we'll go ahead and start taking all these off. Okay, there's all my bolts are out. And also, look, if you have any tags on the back of your rear end, make sure you look at them. For instance, this tag right here, it says here, tells me what kind of oil to put back in the rear end, and it says 75 W140 synthetic oil only. So it's very important that you put the right oil back in the rear end. And also, if you have a manual for your vehicle, looking at it, I guarantee you it will tell you in that manual what oil to put back in your rear end. And also, this other tag says this is 8.8. Looks like it's a 355. Let's see, could be a 355. I'm not sure. Well, it just says 8.8. I have to look at the door tag. So it's always nice to have these tags. All my bolts are out of my cover plate. Now all we got to do is go ahead and get a screwdriver and a hammer and free it up. So now I'll take my hammer and screwdriver and I'll go ahead and break this loose. I've got a pail catching my oil. And this has definitely been on since the factory. And out comes the old. There we go. Take this out. And now we have excess in to the back of the rear end. Now here is a look at the back of the cover, and if you notice, this one does not have a plug for you to put the oil back in. The plug is actually back up on the case. I did find the fill plug, and it is right there. It's kind of hidden. You gotta look for it, but it's on the front driver's side of that rear end. So it's definitely sitting right there. The way, as I was looking at this tag, it turns out this is a 355 rear end, because the other 3 is actually hidden right there. If you can see that, if you spin it around, you really can't see it. So this is definitely a 355 rear end, and I'm pretty happy with it. It has lots of power, and I get about 20 miles a gallon on the open highway. Of course, I got the 4.6. So, all right, let's go ahead and Next thing we got to do here is take that pin out, and so we can slide an axle. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and take out this pin that you see right there where my finger is, and I think you can see it right there. We got to take this out. There's a little bolt right here we have to take out, and what you got to do is put your vehicle in neutral, and like I said, make sure your wheels are blocked, and then you can turn this pinion like this with a screwdriver, and you can get that to come around just about where you want it there, and that will give you access into that. Now I've got a little bit of a change of plans. As I was looking here, I happened to look over to the other axle over here, and let me get out here, let me show you something real quick. And it turns out I have a really bad seal on this side, but look at this brake. It is covered up with grease. It is oily, and apparently this seal on this axle is leaking now, so I went ahead and figured I'd just go ahead and pull this wheel off. We'll pull this axle out at the same time, and this is your lucky day, so you'll get to see me pull both of these axles out and put new seals in. But we are going to check the wheel bearings because I really think one of them's bad. Now I'm going to have to go ahead and we'll pull this out, we'll look at the wheel bearings, we'll inspect them, but definitely if you look closely there, especially back in the back, I don't know if you can see that, but that seal, that axle seal is definitely leaking. So let me go ahead and pull this here off, the calipers real quick, and we'll get this rotor off on this side. This is the passenger side. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get these off here. There's that nut, bolt I should say, and there's that bolt. Put those off the side, I'll take my screwdriver, pop this off like this. And yeah, you can see all kind of grease and nastiness here. It's pretty bad. Especially on the brake pads. I don't know if you can see that there, but look at that. That's pretty bad. And now we'll go ahead and pull this hub off. I think you can see the hub. Let me shake the camera up a little bit better. And, oh yeah, look at that. So I definitely have a bad seal on this axle over here, so it's a good thing we're pulling it apart and just checking everything all at once. And you can see my e-brakes, they're just covered in rear end grease. So we'll go ahead and pop the keys out of the axles and slide these out now. Okay, now what we got to do next is get a little 8mm socket and a ratchet, and we got to take out this little nut bolt right here that holds this pin right here in. Now, if you have a magnet, go ahead and get a magnet and stick it right here, because that'll keep it from falling out, and you can grab it. And this bolt is fairly long. And when you get it so far out, you'll probably have to go get a small wrench, because there's usually not a lot of room here once it gets started to come out. Let's see if we can get this out this way. It might come out, I don't know. Now, see, it's already stopped there, so I'm going to have to go get a small wrench, because you can see the back of this this nut right here holding this casting in it. It hits the back of this, so I have to go get a small 8mm little wrench to help out. Alright, I think you can see that. I got my wrench here, and I got the bolt out as far as it'll go. Take this out like this, and like I said, this is a pretty long bolt. Okay, now at this point I'll go ahead and, like I said, pull the little nut out, and out comes the pin. That's okay, it's sitting right here. That shows you how easy that pin comes out. Now if you look closely, I got my right hand, I'm going to push it on this axle, and you can see that axle, it got pushed in. And now I'm going to stick my hand up in here behind the axle. I'm just going to simply push that key out. Sometimes it's just as easy to do that. And then get you a pair of needle nose pinchers or something. And I'll see if I can get my hand and the camera in here at the same time. And kind of grab that key like that. Sometimes it can be a little difficult with the grease on your hands, but I'm going to try my magnet and see if I can get it off the magnet. That would be wonderful if I could. Probably not, so let me see if I can get my hand back in here, push that a little farther. And remember, you do not want to turn any of these spider gears while you're doing that. Alright, let me see if I can grab this now. There it is. Okay, here we got one. Okay, we got that key out. Set that off to the side down here. And now we've got one more, which is right there. I'm going to take my left hand and push in on this axle, and you'll see it slide in. And now we got to take that key out. And I apologize, it's getting a little late, a little dark. So I'll take my hand and put behind the axle here and just kind of push that key out real quick. See if I can get my fingers in there. Okay, on this one I just took my magnet. I fished it out. There we go. Alright, it's out. And we'll set it off to the side. Now at this point, stop everything you're doing because we got to do something here that's very important. We got to stick the pin back in the bottom here, because if we don't, it's a good possibility we can turn those spider gears, and we don't want that to happen. So let me push those axles back in a little bit. Back out the other way. There we go. Now we can stick our pin in like this, because you do not want those spider gears to turn. You'll have a very bad day. And I don't care who's hollering at you, don't stop. Just put this pin back in. Because if you take those spider gears come out or anything, you're in trouble and they're hard to get back in. So just take this pin here and just sort of tighten it up a little bit. That way your gears won't fall out. So now we're ready, like I said, to pull the axles out. Alright, now at this point you can see the key is out of the axle. The reason we have to take that pin out there is we have to push that axle in, like I said. But normally that key sits in like that, so there's no room to get that key off that axle. So that's why we got to take the key off and push it in like that. And that allows us to pull the axle out. So let's go out here and pull these axles out now. Okay, now we are on the driver's side, and we'll go ahead and slide this axle out. And I'm beginning to think this wheel brake is probably okay. It's probably the other side. But I definitely do need seals. There's that. And now we'll check the bearing here. Okay, well here is the axle, and this is where the bearing rides, and this is how you check it. And if you can't feel any grooves or any places that has been cut by the old bearing, then this axle is okay. So I really think the seal is just bad. That's the only marks I see here. This is just where the seal was rubbing, so we'll end up replacing the seal on this side. And I think the bearing is probably going to be okay, which is great. Now the other side is probably going to be a different story. We'll go over and look at that real quick, but this axle seems to be okay. We'll just clean this up a little bit with a light scuff pad and stick it back in. Here's the seal, and that thing is, yeah, it's pretty much seen better days. So I'm going to have to go out and buy a seal, and you can see it's been leaking too. There's grease all over it. So no news here. And there's the bearing. The bearing seems to be okay. They look alright. I don't see any marks, and I don't feel any excess play. It's supposed to have a little play in and out, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, but no up and down or left and right play. That's what you want. You want a real tight bearing. So looks like we'll just be replacing seals. So let's go to the other side. Alright, here we go with this side, so let's go ahead and pull this out. But before we pull it out, I can lift this up and down a little bit. Not much. There's a little play in it. But it may not be enough to even worry about replacing this wheel bearing. But at least you know how to tear it apart and get into it if you have to replace the bearing. And yeah, this seal is shut. Look at the oil leaking on the bottom here. I think you can see that where my finger is down here. Pretty bad. Let me zoom in. Lots of grease down there. So we're going to pull this axle out. This is mainly the important part. You have to inspect your axles because you don't want to put a bearing in and find out you have to replace the axle. Pull this out. And here is a look at the end of the axle where the bearing rides, and it looks like it's in good shape too. Real smooth. Just some dirt there, grease. So that is good. I don't feel any places that are catching on my finger. And if you really want to get real specific, you can take your fingernail and just kind of ride in there. You can feel. So this bearing is not the bearing. The axle is in good shape. And this is where the bearing rides, right there. Very important to check that. And that seems to be smooth, and it's good. So really all we have to do is look at this seal. So it looks like we are going to be replacing the seal. It doesn't look like the bearing is bad, which is fine. So what we'll do, we'll go buy a couple seals, we'll pop them in, And I'll show you how they pull this bearing out. It's pretty simple. If you have to go ahead and replace your bearing while you're in there, and you can get these bearings as cheap as $15 a piece. Very cheap. So, enough talking. Let me go grab a seal, head out to the parts store, and I'll be back here shortly. Alright, well, it's getting a little late, and I did as much as I could. But I did go out, and I did get my seals, and here they are. Picked them up, and they were only $8 each, and they actually got a little bit of sealing from the factory around the edge, so that's pretty cool. And I got 2 of them, and looks like they should fit right in there. So I did some research, and I found out these bearings are fine, so I'm not going to replace the bearings. They didn't have the tool out there. Concept is to get a tool. They rent these tools out, and you stick it in there, and you get behind this bearing, and it just pulls it out. That's all it is. And you can see a lot of other videos online how they do that. They get a rod, and they just yank on it, and they yank that bearing out. But this seal, I should be able to just pry it out with a pretty big screwdriver, so let's go ahead and pry that out. I was really hoping to replace the bearing. I was hoping it was bad so I can replace it, but there's no point in fixing something that's not broken, right? That's what I thought. Alright, let's go ahead and get this bearing out of here. Alright, I don't know how well you can see that, but I just took a screwdriver and kind of tapped it around the edges. Got behind the seal, and it's about out. Just about out. Like I said, you could get the tool, the puller, and do it that way if you want. But since they didn't have it, this was my only option tonight. I just want to show you, you can take it out other ways, the seal. So I just got to get a grip on it and yank it out. Alright, I'll probably just take my hammer now and just pull it out. And there it comes. There it is. And there's the old seal. And it's shot. I mean, that rubber is literally falling apart in my hand. So that's pretty bad. And there's the bearing. And we'll get in here and we'll clean this up a little bit. A lot of dirt and grease. We'll clean that out real quick. Okay, I got my surfaces nice and clean there on the inside where that seal's going to go, but I thought I'd stick the axle back in. I want to check the bearing plate one more time. And there's my, it's in, and I really think my bearing's just fine. You're supposed to have a little play in and out, just a little bit, because of that key inside there. It has to, you know, go against the spider gear. So there's just going to be maybe a 1/16 of an inch of play, but no up and down play is what you do not want, or left and right. So my decision is this bearing is just fine, and it spins just fine, and I didn't see any marks. So all we got to do now, let's go ahead and pop our new seal in. And also, just a side note, if you do use a screwdriver and you decide to pop the seal out, make sure you don't scuff the inside of this too bad. If you do, use a little sandpaper and smooth it down. You don't want no deep scratches in this, because this also helps seal the oil from that seal so it doesn't leak out. So bearings are fine, everything looks good. So now we'll put the seal in. I figured, well, before I put the axle and the seal in, I wanted to check something. I put the seal on the axle, and it feels really good and tight. So those seals were bad, and I'm glad I'm putting new ones on. Feels really good and tight. So now we'll pop it on. Alright, we'll go ahead and stick this in. I'll just use a hammer and kind of tap it in, start it around the outside and the inside. And just take your time at it. And you hear the sound, the pitch of the sound, it changes. And that seal, my friend, is in. It's all the way in. And we are ready to rock and roll with the other side. It looks really good. Alright, we'll start this one here. Like I said, just take your screwdriver and just get on the outside there and just kind of bend it in a little bit. And take your time at it. Go all the way around if you can. and just kind of bend that seal in a little bit, and it'll eventually come out. Alright, keep going, and I think we just usually if you can get the top of it kind of started, you can take a hammer and just pull out like this on it, and it'll come off. There we go. Just like that. And like I said, try not to scratch the inside. And you can see this old seal. It's seen its better days. I'm happy I'm just replacing the seals, but I also would have been interesting to replace the bearing for you guys, but I'm sure you'll find other videos for that if you need to do that. But getting it tore down to this part is going to be the same process. Like I said, the only thing you have to do is get the puller and pop this bearing out. And also, you can use a puller. If you can get your claws behind this bearing and set something up here, you can just probably pry this out with a regular puller and not use that big long handle with the bar on it to pop it out. But there you go. So the seal's out. So now all I got to do is go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Also, one other quick little note, just make sure you take a scuff pad and kind of clean this surface area up here where the bearing rides on and the seal, and stick it back in. Alright, before I put that seal in, I'm going to go ahead and put this axle in. We'll double check this bearing, get a feel for it, and make sure it's going to be okay. Yeah, that bearing, there's nothing wrong with it. Feels really good. Just like the other. So we'll just pull it out, and we'll go ahead and stick our seal on. Alright, let's go ahead and get this on just in time because it's getting dark. So we'll kind of start that even and just slowly tap it in like that. You'll hear the sound, the pitch sound of the hammer. Hear that? And that seal, my friend, is IN. And that is going to be wonderful. So now all I have to do is stick the axles in tomorrow and put the pin back in the rear end, and I'll paint the cover and all that and give you guys a quick look at it. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but I'll go ahead and put it together and give you one last look at it before we wrap this up. So, if you have to replace your seals and your axles, any Ford, actually, Expedition, F-150, 350, that's going to be about the same, I would think, the process. Although some of the 350s have bigger axles, so you might have to unbolt it out here and pop the axle up, but do some research. But other than that, it looks pretty good. So let's look at this side one more time. There's a nice look at the driver's side, and we'll walk around over here real quick. And look at the passenger side, and it looks really, really good. So tomorrow we'll wrap things up. We'll paint that cover and we'll stick it on there, and we'll end this video tomorrow on a brighter note. And also, looks like some nice weather tomorrow to finish up. So we'll finish this up tomorrow. Alright guys, brand new day out here, so we're going to go ahead and get this wrapped up. Everybody's out here mowing grass and doing what they can because we're supposed to get some pretty big storms this afternoon. So go ahead and stick this together. So we'll go ahead and put this axle in on this side and double check it, seal one more time, make sure there's no tear marks or anything like that, and check your axle, make sure it's nice and clean, no dirts on it. And we'll go ahead and slide this in and just gently put it in there. Take your time at it, and it goes in pretty easy, and once it gets in there you'll feel it. Go in and check that out, and there is that one. That feels really good. Now we'll go to the passenger side. Okay, same thing on this side. Check your axle, make sure there's no dirt on it. Check your seal one more time, make sure that you didn't tear it or anything. And it looks really good. And we'll go ahead and slide this in. Dirt there. Just take your time at it. And as you put it in, turn it a little bit. There we go, and we're in. And we are done with that. Now all we gotta do is go underneath and put the keys back in. Alright, we'll go ahead and take our little bolt out, 8mm, and then we'll slide our pin out. Alright, we'll go ahead and drop our key back in. Sometimes you can do it with your fingers, probably just as fast. Just like that. And push that out of the way. And same thing with the other side. Put it in like that. Take your finger and push it on the axle so the keys can't go nowhere. Now all we gotta do is put the pin back in. And here comes our pin. Like that. And now we'll go ahead and tighten up our bolts. And they recommend that you use blue RTV Loctite. Or blue Loctite. Don't use the red or the other colors. Not sure why, but that's what Ford recommends. And that's what I've seen on other forums. Tighten this down to about 40 pounds. And we are good. And don't forget to take your socket off there. There it is. Sometimes they like to stick on there. And that rear end is back together. So all I have to do now is go ahead and put the cover plate back on, which is inside. I've got it painted and cleaned up and put oil back in it. And we'll look at it one more time before we end the video. Oh, and one other quick tip, before you go in there and put your cover plate back on, take a cloth and a real long screwdriver and go in there and kind of wipe out that excess oil. There's a small sump right here. You can get your finger down in, take a rag and clean some of that excess out and check for metal flakes in metal, because you know metal can ruin your day when it's mixed in with any oil. So check that and you're good to go. We'll go ahead and put this cover plate back on and we'll take one more look at it here. Alright. It's back together. And there's the plate, the cover plate, and you can see it's all back together. I even put the tags where you can read them. Yeah, they were backwards, upside down before. That's just me. But it's all together. I'm pretty happy with it, and shouldn't be no leaks. And make sure you get enough sealant on the back of that. Not a lot, but you need enough back there to keep it from leaking. And some people recommend you use a gasket, but I figured if the factory puts sealant on there, well, it's good enough for me too. So other than that, this baby's done. Let's get out here and look at it and wrap this video up before the storms move in. And like I said, check your bearings. You know, I barely have any play in this axle, up or down, left or right, and there should be just a little in play, not much, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And I gotta wipe off my e-brakes with the grease. And we'll go back on the driver's side. Same thing over here. Hardly any play, in play. Can't hardly move it at all. And of course, nothing up and down. So these bearings were fine. The noise, I found out, was actually a suspension piece that goes up under the frame here. And I don't think you can see it on this side over. There's a bolt. That bushing was bad, so the whole time I was thinking this wheel bearing was bad when I'd hit a bump, but it turned out to be that suspension piece. So, but I did need seals. They were shot. You saw those in the video. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and good luck. And I think the same process here will be for even the Ford trucks. Probably, gosh, 92, 93, maybe all the way up to 2005. Same process to get these axles out if you have to replace those seals. But definitely check your seals. If you have any grease, rear end grease back here, and you see it leaking out, you're going to have to replace your seals sooner or later. If not, you're going to end up losing all your rear end grease through the seals leaking out, and you're going to end up burning up your rear end. So definitely check that out. All right, well, that's it, guys. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on my next project. As kind of waiting for these storms to roll in. It'll be nice to have a little rain today to kind of relax a little bit. So I'll see you guys then on my next project. Until then, later.